Demon Souls, exists. It's where it all started, unless you include Kingsfield, which, I mean...
Oh, man, no, man. What the hell?
It was the game that gave From Software the confidence to create Dark Souls, which, as you know, became a massive cultural phenomenon, completely changed video games, one of my personal favorite games. Okay, really quickly before the video starts, I just want to say this is part 1, or I guess kind of part 2-ish, to a series that I'm going to be doing, where I beat every single boss in the From Software series and rank them all first by game and then the entire series. I'm going to be streaming the entire process on Twitch. If that sounds interesting to you, the link will be in the description to my Twitch. There's also a link to my Discord, which gives you notifications when I go live, a place to hang out, a place to share memes, pet photos. It's really fun. Okay, back to the video. But when it comes to Demon Souls, as far as the boss quality goes, you can really tell that this was their first try. I don't know if this is going to offend some of you watching, but honestly, aside from 2 bosses in this game, I would give most of these bosses just a meh. But before I get ahead of myself to start talking about these bosses too much, I should probably introduce the tier list we're going to be using today. The different categories I have on here are perfect, great, very good, good, okay, average, below average, bad, boring, and frustrating. And I feel like everything from great to bad is just like a ranking purely based on like my enjoyment level. But I feel like perfect, boring, and frustrating are kind of like removed from those categories. Perfect are just my favorite bosses for whatever reason that I like really enjoy and are my personal favorite. Boring, anything in this category, certain bosses can be better than other ones, but everything in this category is going to be boring. And then the same thing with frustrating, like some of them could be better than others and would rank higher in the same tier, but they all belong in the frustrating tier for one reason or another. Also, for my rankings, I will be factoring in things like spectacle and how difficult or frustrating it is to get back to the boss after an attempt. Yeah, so with that out of the way, now we can finally get into the rankings. So let's jump right in with Vanguard is a boss like a few others in this game that has the problem of kind of just being a big boy who hits hard but moves really slowly. All his moves are very telegraphed, which if he was a boss in a later game in this series would make him a pushover, but because he's in Demon Souls and your movement's kind of slower, it helps him a little bit. And the reason this isn't my footage is because I'm kind of dumb and didn't realize Vanguard was on the list for some reason, and then because the VOD was so old, it's Aaron Hernandez Gone Forever, so I kind of just had to use someone else's footage. But trust me, I beat him. There are much harder bosses in this game, so if I was going to skip one, it wouldn't be this one. Overall, I didn't really have many strong feelings about Vanguard, but the fact that he's meant to kind of show you that dying is part of the game and he sends you to the Nexus for the first time bumps up his rating a little bit for me. I put him in average because he's not quite on the level of Asylum Demon. He's not offensive enough to be bad, but he's not engaging enough to be good, so I believe he fits just perfectly in average. Now we can actually move on to a boss that I have my own footage of. Right away with the first mandatory boss in the game, Demon Souls comes out swinging with an absolute dinger of a home run. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. This boss kind of sucks. Unless you enjoy playing Ring Around the Rosie with angry snails poking you with spears, in which case this is the perfect boss for you. As for the rest of us, we're gonna stick this one in the boring category because, let's be honest, that's where it belongs. Like a few other bosses in this game, I respect and admire the fact that From Software is being creative right away and not just throwing the same boss at you over and over again. I think this can be attributed to Miyazaki having complete creative freedom in this game and just being able to throw all his ideas at the wall and see what stuck, which ended up being a good thing, but in this boss's case it ended up being a bad thing. And then just down the hallway from Phalanx we have our next boss. I'm dead.
Hi, I'm the random girl who shows up in these videos sometimes. I watched this boss occur, so I wanted to do a little synopsis. It's boring. All you do is shoot the dragon a bunch of times with an arrow like Katniss Everdeen, and it's really boring. Yeah, that's all that happened. So, that's all.
Tower Knight is the first example of my biggest problem with Demon Souls. The boss itself is cool. I mean, I like making him take a tumble like your grandma down the stairs and then repeatedly bashing him on the skull. but I ended up knocking his rating down because of his runback. This is, I think, possibly the longest runback in the game, and boy does it feel like it. Later games in the series allow you to choose to run past enemies to get to the boss or fight them. I'm someone who will fight through and explore the area once until I get to the boss, and then during every boss attempt I'll just run past all the enemies to get to the boss. But Demon Souls says,
"Oh, brother, whoa, now. You got too much dip on your chip."
And it makes you fight through every single enemy for every attempt. This is the first example of this problem, but it's definitely not the last. I put Tower Knight in the okay category because while I like the fight, I can't justify the triathlon it takes to get back to him every time. That's it. That's it for you, you fucking cuck. I take it back. The One Reborn is better than that. Just because of that run-up, I didn't realize how fucking annoying that run-up is. Holy shit. The One Reborn actually has an annoying run-up too, but like nothing on this fucking tier. Moving right along, the next boss that I beat was... This boss could have been a lot better, but there was just this one attack. It's the attack where he shoots the oil all over the floor and then lights it on fire, and you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the arena. Because I was learning how to like dodge and time his attacks, and I was two-handing the weapon, and I was really enjoying that part of it. But then that attack just completely stops all that momentum, forces you all the way back, and then you have to dodge these like projectiles that do way too much damage in my opinion. I would have traded off the boss doing more damage with its melee attacks for it to not do the oil attack. And for that reason, I ended up putting this boss in the below average category. I felt like it easily could have gone to okay or even good without the oil attack, but I felt like the oil attack was enough to bump up the frustration factor and bump down the fun factor, where I felt like I could put it in below average. And speaking of below average, the next boss is... Fool's Idol, like Phalanx, is an example of a boss trying to be different but ultimately suffering the consequences because of it. I put Fool's Idol in below average because rather than fighting a boss, this feels more like playing hide and seek in a mirror maze. I do like the cheeky little guy outside the boss room that you have to kill or else he'll heal the boss. I've always liked when From Software adds these sneaky little things. It's kind of like an inside joke straight from the developer to the player, where it's like, oh, gotcha, and then it's kind of fun when you watch your friend play for the first time and then it gets him too, and then you get to kind of laugh like you and Miyazaki are like girls at a slumber party who just played a prank on their friend. Yeah, but as for the boss itself, I hope you like getting fireballs thrown at you and getting stuck on these little circles that stun you. I personally didn't, and that's why I ended up ranking this boss so low. And then following up the Fool's Idol, the next boss that I beat was... Adjudicator is way more frustrating than it needed to be. Like the Tower Knight, you need to knock him down and bonk him on the head, but also like the Tower Knight, you need to go through an excruciating run back every time you die. This wouldn't be a problem if this guy wasn't such a bitch to get back to. First, it's all the skeletons on the stairs, which would be no walk in the park on its own. Then you have to deal with even more skeletons across the little courtyard area, only this time you're being sniped at by flying manta rays. And finally, you have to cross this narrow cliff with, you guessed it, more skeletons. It's a shame because I don't hate this boss on its own, but I put it in okay because I really didn't want to die and have to go fight those skeletons again. I may have even put this run back at the most annoying in the game if it weren't for the next boss. Leechmonger, in my opinion, could possibly have the most annoying runback that I feel like I may have died on the most times with those like giant troll looking guys. And then once you finally get to the boss, I beat him on the first try. It's very boring, he's very slow, you just stick to his butt and keep chipping at his cheeks until he goes down. Just not that interesting of a concept, horrible runback, and for that reason I actually put this boss in bad. It's a boring boss, and then it's really tough to get to the boss itself, which is just a horrible combination. Yeah, I really have nothing more to say about the Leechmonger, to be honest. It's just a really short entry because the only thing notable about this boss is the run-up and how shitty it is, but once you get into the boss room, it's just not a notable boss. But following the Leechmonger is my first boss in the game that I really enjoy, and it only took From Software 8 bosses to get there. Alright, I'm gonna put on my serious reviewer cap for this one because I absolutely love Flamelurker. I think he's the first example of From Software finding that sweet spot of challenge that's satisfying to overcome but not too frustrating. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you find that perfect amount of self-deprecation to make your entire family laugh. Like if you had gone too far, your mom would be like, don't say that, but you found that sweet spot that makes her laugh too. I don't know, maybe that's a very specific situation and not as relatable as I'm thinking, but I hope you know what I mean. Anyway, this boss has the perfect amount of speed for Demon Souls, not too fast, not too slow, aggression that keeps the action constant, and damage to create a challenge. I ended up putting Flamelurker in very good. I probably could have been convinced to push him higher, possibly up into great, but I feel like my love for him was more due to the fact that he's a breath of fresh air for Demon Souls, and if he was in a different game in the series, I don't know if I would rate him as high. That being said, I could be wrong, and I probably could be convinced to put him in great. But if for some reason you're looking for a boss that's not very good, look no further than I'm honestly just kind of impressed at how fast From Software can go from my favorite boss in the game to easily the worst boss in the game in a matter of seconds. Just a few steps away from where you fought Flamelurker is the Dragon God. This fight consists of running across corridors, karate chopping some rocks, and praying to RNGesus that the Dragon God's AI is feeling nice today, and allows you to press the buttons on the harpoons that he's hanging out in front of for some reason. Once you're done with that, you jog down to his face and start slashing his tongue. I don't know why I was so scared during this part, I think I just really didn't want to have to do the whole fight again. Without question, this boss is our first member of the frustrating category, and I'm very glad he's after Flamelurker, because if I ever decide I want to revisit that fight, I don't have to go through this bullshit again. They say when it rains it pours, and in this case that's true with our next boss. Maneater, Maneater, Maneater. You put up the toughest fight of any boss against me and I'm gonna give you props for that. What I won't give you props for is this fucker right here. Every single time you die to this boss, and you will die to this boss, repeatedly, you have to get past this guy, and if you didn't know, this is one of the toughest mobs in the game. And you have to try and slip past him on this narrow spiral staircase. Then your reward for getting past this guy is easily the hardest boss in the game, but not for good reasons. During the first phase, the Maneater spends way too much time hovering over the arena and not letting you hit him. Sometimes he hovers less, but once again you're at the mercy of RNG here. Then if you're lucky enough to whittle his health down enough, his twin brother shows up to make the fight that much more fun. This boss took me multiple sessions to beat and was not enjoyable at all during that whole time. So for me, this one easily belongs in the frustrating category. From Software has never really perfected the gank fight, and this is the first in a long list of bad ones. I was thrilled to be done with the Maneater and move on to the next boss. Now with the old hero, once again we have a fight that itself is really cool and I really like the concept for it. He can't see you, but he can hear you, so you spend the fight kind of trying to sneak around him, but if you're too loud he can punish. This is a cool idea, and again, it's really creative for the first game From Software made like this, but I'm only going to put him in the good category. And to avoid sounding like a broken record, I said something right after I beat him, and I think it summed up the fight pretty well, so I'm just going to let that clip play and let that do the explaining for me. My thoughts, immediately. That would have been so much more fun if I could have been risky and tried to like really have fun with it. But instead, I was afraid of having to do that entire level again. So I played that as safely as possible, which made the boss experience less fun. Yeah, that about sums it up. On to... So once again for the Penetrator fight, I'm a little bit of a bozo. I didn't realize something I had done earlier in the game made me have this NPC companion with me for the fight. I've heard that this boss is pretty hard, but my experience was basically just getting cucked while the Penetrator penetrated my NPC companion. So this boss fight was really easy for me because of that. I'm going to be putting it in the good category. I think that would be higher had I not had my little NPC friend with me, because I would have gotten to experience the difficulty, but because I had him with me, I'm just putting him in good, and I'm not going to play the entire game up until the Penetrator again, just so I can do it without this NPC's help. So, I apologize. The sanctity of my list is not as pure as I'm sure you would like. Go ahead and leave a comment about how I have no penis or balls below. Thank you, have a nice day. So I'm headed back to everyone's favorite world, the Valley of Defilement, for our next boss. Dirty Colossus is another example of a boss that's less notable than the area it's in. And it goes without saying, I mean, you're in the Valley of Defilement, of course this area is going to be annoying. Luckily for us, Miyazaki, in his infinite wisdom and mercy, has blessed us with a shortcut to the boss room, so we no longer have to go through the entire area every time we want to fight the boss. Alright, so I'm going to give you a moment to type "Thank you Miyazaki" in the chat. Did you do it yet? As for the actual boss, there's not really much to write home about. I put it in the below average category because basically it's just Leechmonger 2.0. He can poison you, but if you stay on his butt, you're fine. The shortcut bumps up the rating. It would probably be lower, but the shortcut definitely helps. So again, thank you Miyazaki. Write it again in the chat. I need to see 2 thank you Miyazaki comments for every username. I will be scrolling through the comments. Next up is... So you remember that praise that we just gave Miyazaki for that shortcut? I want you to immediately take all of it back. Delete your comment, delete the other comment because I told you to do 2. And the reason that we're taking all of this praise back is because remember that Cthulhu thing that was really annoying on that one bridge? Yeah, well Miyazaki actually put 2 of those things on this staircase before this boss. Absolutely diabolical behavior. As for the boss itself, I really like this boss. It's a PvP boss, so if you can get someone to match up with you online, you get to fight them. Unfortunately for me, my person disconnected before I got to them, so I ended up just fighting a computer. But still, I like the concept. I ended up rating this as a good because I like the idea of a PvP fight. I think it breaks up the monotony of fighting the bosses over and over again. It adds something new, a little needed something different. Next up we have... The King of Storms is another gimmick fight. It's also another boss that they would kind of copy later and try to improve upon, and I do think that they actually improved upon it with Yorm. My problem with the King of Storms is that he suffers from having too much health. After you've beaten all the baby manta rays and poured one out for my boy Steve Irwin, it's just you and the king himself. And this boss does feel cool. I mean, blasting him with air does kind of make you feel like an airbender. But when you have to wait for his big lumbering ass to turn around every single time to hit him, it gets pretty frustrating after a while. So I put the King of Storms in the boring category. Though I do appreciate the spectacle of this fight, it just was not enough to keep me entertained for the several minutes it took me to whittle his health down. Next is another boss that, I mean, it's really not even a boss. Killing the Primeval Demon involves killing yourself repeatedly to change your world tendency, and then hitting him twice. Wow. I'm putting him in the boring category, but honestly, it just doesn't feel fair. I mean, he didn't ask for this. I mean, look at him, he's not bothering anybody. Imagine if you went into your bathroom and just stepped on a tiny little spider, and then were like, yeah, he's boring because he died too fast. That doesn't seem very nice. I don't know what critical consensus is on this boss, but I absolutely did not enjoy it. The whole fight is just baiting this simp into attacking so you can hit him once over and over again until he's dead, because he's fighting you in this tiny little area so you don't really have room to actually make it a full-on fight. Then once you finally kill him, Estrella just gives up and dies of a broken heart, I guess, which I'm just gonna say it, Padme did it better. And that's it. I gave this boss a rating of bad because I don't think it was difficult enough to be frustrating, and I don't think it was brain dead enough to be boring. It was just bad. Next up is the only boss that I didn't beat. blue dragon is a boss that I skipped, although in my chat we actually discovered he's a drake, not a dragon, so here we go. It says dragons have wings in addition to their limbs, while instead drakes have a single set of their limbs replaced by wings like bats. Okay, so this would be a drake then. Anyway, he's the same as the red dragon, drake, whatever you want to call it. You just shoot him a bunch of times and he's dead. I got the okay from my chat that it was fine, that I didn't have to beat him. Is it just me or is his health not going down at all? In the chat, is it okay if I don't do this and then when I'm doing my ranking, put this boss in the boring category, because I believe that that's where it belongs, and I think that me shooting 700 more arrows into it is not going to change my opinion on that. What to do? I'm just going to put him in boring as well and call it a day on this one. And finally, we're to the last real challenge of the game with... I like this fight a lot because, like Flamelurker, it forces you to dodge and gives you a real challenge at the end of the game. I would have liked for this to be the last fight of the game and have Demon Souls end on more of a bang than a whimper, but it's for lore reasons, so I guess it's okay. I put Old King Alot in very good along with Flamelurker, and these are my two favorite bosses in the game, and the two bosses that if I ever wanted to play this game again, it would be because of them. The final boss in the game is... So I guess this is King Alot, but in poop slug form? I don't know. He doesn't really fight back much, and you kill him really easily. I put him in the okay category. I'm sure it's for thematic reasons or something that he's so easy, but I prefer these games to end on a fight like Gwyn, Garamond, Soul of Cinder, so on. Still, most people remember Old King Alot as that finale anyway, so I suppose it's fine. There we go.
Don't you understand? No one wishes to go on.
So here's how my final ranking ended up turning out. It's possible that I may have been a little too harsh on this game. I just don't think any of the bosses belonged in great, and by the end of this challenge, I was really just ready to move on to Dark Souls. I also feel like I need to add this about Demon Souls. I'm only being negative about this game in comparison to the other ones in the series. I would still much rather play Demon Souls than like 99% of the games on the market right now. So if you feel like I'm being too harsh on Demon Souls, I understand where you're coming from. Just know that it's only in comparison to games that are so good. Not that this game is bad, just that those games are so much better. Which is a good thing from a game company, right? I mean, you want to see that improvement, so of course this is going to be like one of the worst ones. It's the first one. Let me know in the comments what you think of my list. I'm also going to post this on Twitter, so if you want to leave your thoughts there, you can do that as well. If you made it this far in the video, I'm going to tell you again, this is a series that's going to be continuing on my Twitch and this YouTube channel, so subscribe and follow me over there to keep up with all the updates. We have a really fun community growing on Twitch. It's still really small, but I think that's honestly what makes it more fun. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all the YouTube things. Oh yeah, and Discord. I'm still learning the ins and outs of it, but it's a really good place to interact with me because I check it all the time. And with that, that's the end of my video, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.